Hello, it's me again. Uh, I'm just gonna be honest. I think, actually, I don't even think. I'm fairly confident. In fact, I would say I'm almost certain. Overwatch's current state, encompassing everything, in terms of game balance, not in terms of like cosmetics and stuff like that, genuinely might be in the worst state it has ever been in the history of the game. And that's with the best season that we've ever had released in terms of content. Because we got a new hero, which is sick, new game modes, or well, new game mode, which I don't like, but people do. So content is content. New maps, I don't love them, but new maps are new maps. It's fantastic. We got good mythics, good skins. That's shit that people care about, and I appreciate that. And those are great things. However, when it comes to raw gameplay, this is without a shadow of a doubt in my mind the worst season I have ever played of Overwatch in my entire existence. Genuinely, it's worse than goats, it's worse than quad tank, it's worse than double shield, it's worse than any comp I can remember from the 8 years I've spent on this game, and it's for a lot of reasons. The first reason is that the current meta right now is genuinely awful. Not necessarily in the sense that the characters that are getting played are bad. I think that's generally okay. I'm okay with D.Va and Monkey for the most part. I'm a big fan of those heroes. I'm not really a big fan of D.Va, especially not in our current state. But the overall kind of dive meta is fun to me. I like dive. However, the actual problem with the dive meta that we're playing in is that it's not really dive meta. I'm picking the fastest paced tank hero because if I pick a slower paced one, the Reaper and the Ashe will just delete me from existence because they kill me so quickly. But if I play a dive hero, those dive heroes are so difficult to kill that I get on top of things fast and I can be there forever. So it's not really a dive meta. It's more, I'm just going to sit on top of you and win through a battle of attrition because my health bar is so egregiously large on these characters, especially D.Va, where her health bar is literally invincible. D.Va has been buffed and micro buffed so much to the point where Zarya legit is not a counter to the hero anymore. Zarya gets absolutely fucking dumpstered by D.Va now, unless you're like really bad at D.Va, then obviously not. But in the higher elos where I'm playing, D.Va absolutely pile driver Zarya into the ground, in basically every map. And the reason for that is because D.Va has infinite uptime, whereas Zarya does not. For example, let's say you're playing against Ashe, Reaper, Ana, Brig, D.Va, right? The problem is even though let's say you have 100 charge in 2 bubbles, you can beam the D.Va and you're beaming, and then you bubble and you're still beaming. But the issue is that when you're doing damage to the armor, let's just keep things really simple. This is obviously not the actual numbers. But let's say every bullet you do is usually 20 damage, but every time you hit armor, you do 10 damage. So that means you need to do 50% more damage to make up just for the fact that you're shooting armor. Then, with that, you then also need to realize the fact that if you heal armor, you heal the full amount of the armor. For example, if you're at Ana and you heal a target, you heal 70 health. Or, if you hit them and it goes into their armor, then they'll heal as much armor as they would have as there is overlap. For example, let's say you're on D.Va and you take 70 damage. The Ana heals you one time, you get 70 armor back. So you get 70 armor back, but you still need to perform 50% more damage, or I guess double damage, to that hero to just make up for the fact that they were getting healed in the first place. So just to break even, you need to do twice as much damage to the hero as they receive heal on some heroes. Now that obviously doesn't apply to all of them, but especially heroes like Soldier, which is why he's the worst character in the game. He literally does not do anything to any of the tank heroes that aren't like Zarya and Sigma. Basically every other tank just kills him for free. But putting that aside, because there's a lot of gameplay or game balance issues, generally speaking, Ashe is still the best DPS hero in the game. Reaper is still insanely OP. Brig is still insanely OP. And let me just break a tangent off before I go into matchmaking, because that's another big issue this season. Is a lot of people very quickly jump to the conclusion of, wow, that's weird, this hero got really good this season. Like, let's say Brig, for example, where Brig wasn't the best before this season. Where people were like, wow, nothing really happened to Brig, but she's super good now. What happened? The actual reality is that people don't understand the game good enough, and that Brig was good the whole time. Brig has been good the whole time. The Reaper has been good the whole time. Ashe has been good the whole time. But these people don't know that, because what they do is they look at a tier list video, like I make, which I love a tier list, but they don't actually pull good information out of it. Because if they go, okay, a hero's S tier, that means they're really good. But just because a hero's B tier doesn't mean the hero was bad. The hero is still good, right? Like, Brig is still a good hero even when she's not hard meta, because that's just the way the hero is. Unless she gets nerfed to be statistically unviable, then she's still a good character no matter what. And that's just how it is. Anyway, now to get into my biggest issue with the season so far. The matchmaker is something else, genuinely. So as of right now, I'm like position 300 on the tank leaderboard in EU, or like 340 or something. I don't know. I move around so much. Like, I'll get off for a day and I'll lose like 200 positions. But the leaderboard's fucked and the ranks are fucked, so it doesn't really matter anyway. But anyway, the amount of times... Now, this isn't necessarily the fault of these players because their role is terrible, but the amount of negative DPS players I have on my team is absurd. It genuinely is not uncommon to see teammates going 1-5, 2-6, 1-8, 1-9, 5-8, things just like horrifically terrible stat lines. But that's just the state of the game because DPS is terrible. But it's not also that. It's because the rank reset destroyed the game. So we're mixing terrible game balance, horribly, unbalanced between the roles, and you're mixing that with a rank reset, which doesn't work. Because all that's happened is that all the tank players that, for example, let's say were to get boosted in rank slightly, and then say all the DPS players who were, obviously are getting boosted in rank slightly, you're then getting in these situations where if you're a tank player, you're then relying on these DPS players that aren't willing to pull their weight. So, for example, because some players got boosted in the rank reset, I will then get plat players that were boosted to masters, low diamond players that were boosted to masters. But the other issue is that some players just got a little bit unlucky in their placements and just got perma stuck in like diamond, for example. And this isn't even an uncommon thing. Crystal Rain, who's a GM DPS player, is legit hard stuck diamond and just can't get out. They're a GM DPS player, they've been GM for a long time, they can't get out of diamond. Because the game, as of right now, is not about your actual skill level, it's about how well you are at counterpicking the tank and how willing your team is to counterpick the tank as well. It's literally a dice roll. It's complete casino. That's it. That's entirely what the game boils down to right now. It is, if you're on the DPS roll, let's say the enemy team is going Ana Brig, Tracer, Sombra, D.Va, fucking crazy comp. If your tank goes, I want to play Roadhog, you lose. You lose the game. That's it. You just flat out, you lost the game. Unless that player is like a top 10 tank player, knows exactly what they're doing, and is incredibly good at the hero, you fucking lost. That's just the hard reality of the game. If your team gets gapped at all, you lose. You lose. Your tank gets gapped, you fucking lose. If he doesn't pick the right hero, you fucking lose. It does not matter what you do on any of the roles, barring support, some of the support heroes. Like, for example, if you go BAP, you can literally just 1v5. The hero is so broken. But outside of playing, like, some support heroes very well, unless your tank... If your tank gets gapped or doesn't play the right hero, 80% of the time, unless you're smurfing, you get fucking smacked. And there's nothing you can do about it. But another issue is, let's say your tank is gapping the enemy tank. If, for example, the enemy team decide to go, okay, we're going to go Ashe, Reaper, Ana Brig, D.Va, and we're going to counter his monkey. And your team goes, nah, man, I'm just going to stay Symmetra, I'm going to stay Junkrat, I'm going to stay, like, fucking Mercy Moira. Then you just lose as well. So multiple things have to come into effect for you to actually win a game. And the least apparent one of those things, the least important one of those variables, is your actual skill and how good you are at the game. It is the least important part of winning, is your actual skill. Most of the reason you win games is because your teammates are willing to counterpick, your tank is willing to counterpick, your tank is willing to actually counterpick the enemy tank to the degree of literally walking back to the spawn room and swapping hero consistently just to enable your team to maybe possibly win a duel. Just straight up counterpicking to the point where the only advantage you're able to gain is the fact that your hero is simply better than the one they're playing. And things like that, where if your team are simply not willing to do that, your chances of winning are very low. And I'm not speaking for the top 10 tank players, I'm not speaking for the top 50 DPS players here. I'm speaking for the majority of the player base who is like gold, plat, silver, diamond. These players are not good enough to put a team on their shoulders. They don't know how to play the game well enough to actually carry a game to make up for that deficit. Like, if the enemy team is playing Ash Reaper and you have Symmetra Junk and Diamond, you fucking lost. I'm sorry. Like, the harsh reality is you probably just lost, because that's just how it is. Like, you're playing this suboptimal matchup, and unless you have a crazy good tank player, you lose. So DPS players are having a miserable time because they're forced to play like one of 4 DPS characters, which either Tracer Sombra or Ash Reaper. The tank is having a terrible time because if the enemy team pick the right heroes, it doesn't matter what you play, you just probably lose anyway. And the support heroes are just doing what support heroes do, and are complaining that Juno isn't a free win button, where they go, you know what, Juno's super weak when she never was, and the reason they said that she was super weak is because they're used to heroes in the game releasing in the state things like Carry and Baptiste and Brig, and things like that, where they have a lot of free win buttons and they play themselves, and they're insanely broken. And it's the reason people thought Juno was bad was because they just didn't have a self-heal, an immortality, a teleport, some retarded ability like this, where the character takes genuine skill to play, and because the hero takes genuine skill to play, all the support players were like, yeah, this hero sucks, which is objectively false. Basically, what I'm saying is, the current season of Overwatch is one of the worst in the history of the game in terms of gameplay, but is one of the best in terms of content. So if you're a casual player, you're probably having a great time. If you're a ranked player, you probably hate yourself. Anyway, by the way, if you're watching the gameplay in the background, yes, my team was 1-9. No, that is not uncommon. That's every other game. Okay, goodbye. Bye-bye.